you want to go ahead and do roll call?
Sure. Mean Win,
Present.
Gary Latshaw,
Here.
Tara Krishna, here. Donnie Sweden,
Here.
Peter Evans,
Here.
George Parton,
Here.
Thomas Claiborne,
Yes.
Robert Brewer,
Here.
Sandy Guju,
Here.
Tara Martin Milius,
Here.
James Toya,
Here.
Tristan Meacham,
Here.
and is there anybody that I missed? No? Okay, so absent, I'm sorry, Pamela Garcia. So absent, I will note that we have Brian McBishop, Jeff Coleman, Doug Cruz.
Was there anybody that you knew was going to be absent?
I believe I was notified, yes.
So you expected?
I have to look back. I know that Doug Cruz, I believe he was not able to make it today.
Okay, so let's go on. So is there anybody who would like to make a comment on something not on the agenda? Seeing here and okay, so then we're going to run the consent calendar and there's one change, and that is the minutes are actually for January 17th.
Correct. So for item 1A and 1C, I referred to the meeting being January 18th. It was January 17th, so just with that change.
So does anybody like to discuss anything on
Can I ask a question? I wasn't here, so I don't feel comfortable to vote for the first two, but the third one I do. But we have to pull it off for me to be able to vote yes on or no on?
We can just note it, you want to
Okay.
abstain for the minutes to be.
Okay, so I can still do that.
Yeah, we can just like that. So is there anybody else like to discuss anything to find on this? So I don't see one, so a motion to approve.
I would do meetings.
Second. So, do we have to do a roll call vote for everybody?
No, just as long as there's a general consensus, if you call the question and everybody agrees.
Okay, so those
I
are.
also have to stay from what it is.
That's all as well. Okay, so, all in favor of consent? Say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Okay, so it passes unanimously with the two extensions. Great.
I need to abstain from 1A and B, but I vote yes for 1C. However you need to vote.
Do you have all the extensions?
I believe so. So I have James Soleil abstaining from item 1A and 1B, and I have Tara Martin Milius and Robert Brewer abstaining from item 1B.
I would vote against you as well, I should stay from one view.
1B? Okay.
We both abstained.
You,
For one
okay,
game, heroes.
yeah.
So you left.
Okay, so, I'm waiting for you to, I want to make sure we're on this.
Okay, so I have Gary Latshaw and Tara Krishna abstaining from item 1A. 1B. I have Sandy Guju, Robert Brewer on item 1B, as well as Tara Martin Milius.
Yes.
And item 1A and 1B for James today. Wait, it's 1A. 1A, okay.
Okay? All right, good, so let's go on, so regular calendar. Before we get into that, I want to bring your attention back to one of the slides that was in our prior meeting, prior to the schedule. It's a pretty small review. But, today we're going to talk about program benefits, and I'll come back to that in a second. But our goal is, schedule that we given is that we're supposed to provide present recommendations to the SVCE board at June very meeting. So we have this meeting, talking about program benefits, the next three, March, April, and May. given that we only meet once a month, and hopefully we're for 2 hours each time, and we may have subcommittees and so forth, we get into these things, but, it's a pretty depressing schedule. And, so I just want to remind people of that. So the second thing is, today we're going to talk about, we had a pre-meeting to talk about what kind of business we're talking about. These are what are they? So I just want to lay out what I think we're trying to do today. And that is that the benefit would be a reason to do a program or a desired outcome. Ideally something that's measurable. We may attribute benefits to different groups. For example, it might be a benefit to customers, it might be a benefit to the SVCE, maybe a benefit to others. Benefits are priorities. I would say that a program that has a lot of benefits might have a higher priority, but it's not exactly the same thing. And also, benefits are not really criteria. A criterion might be that a program needs one or more benefits. So again, they're not quite the same thing. And as I look through kind of the CCE literature, including some of the stuff that we've done here already, in terms of what types of things, or what types of approaches other CCAs have taken for customer benefits, to me, kind of the reasons or the use cases or what they're trying to accomplish are really not that good. And I think we inherit that to some extent from the utility domain, where the reason you do programs is because you got money to do it. And so, right?
That's not accurate. I used to be PG&E energy efficiency firm. To some degree, yes, but that's not right.
And then my primary reason for sort of getting away, taking kind of a higher level view here, is because I really want to try to tease out. If we come up with a list of benefits on our own, and hopefully we'll tease out some things to do that maybe are new, not the regular stuff, or maybe have better reasons or different reasons for doing things than other utilities and other organizations have done. So anyway, today what we're going to do is we're going to come up with a list of reasons to do a program or programs.
It's really clarification. So, I see we have a chart and we have a timeline and we have a goal and that is what's not obvious to me is that for the group, what do we call success? What does that mean?
So here's what I think. I think that we have to come up with one or more recommendations for one or more specific programs. That it's not just ideas, but programs. It doesn't have to be all the detail, but we have to be able to describe it in sentences. And we're going to actually have an exercise in a minute where we're going to do this. And we have to be able to state what benefits this program or these programs hope to achieve, how we would measure them, what they might cost, and by implication, how we would finish success for those programs. So does that answer your question?
Yeah.
So we have to do more than just come up with a bunch of sort of open-ended ideas. But hopefully we can at least come up with a few programs. And I think that likely we'll come up with a pretty good list of programs. But if we can't figure out, if we have an idea and we can't figure out why we think it's a good idea, we can't figure out how to determine whether it's successful or not successful, or we don't know what it's going to cost, it's going to be hard to put those in place. So that's our target for June. Other questions or comments or disagreements about that?
Yeah, question. Are we clear on what our objective is from the program? So we're going to be, as you said, we're going to recommend 2 different programs. Are we clear on what we want those programs to achieve?
That's what we're going to talk about.
Because you were talking about benefits. So
Yeah, that's what I would say. Three bars.
all right.
And I don't think we should be bound, by the way, by other reasons why other people are in the program, including, by the way, this might be sacrilegious, but I don't think we're necessarily bound in a hard way by the SVCE mission statement. There might be benefits that we think are worthwhile that don't really appear in the mission statement. One that we talk about later is not to change the mission statement, but is a program on mission or off? definition. But I think for this discussion, I really want to have it be open-ended. You guys are all utility customers. You have, learning, you have a decent amount of knowledge in the room about the electric utility space. And so, I think this should be an open-ended discussion. That CCE is a new thing, and we can achieve different things with this type of organization than have been achieved with energy organizations in the past. So it's okay to put something on our list of hopeful outcomes. If you haven't heard it before, we still think it's a good idea. So then, you flip, I guess we don't have to work with the computer yet, right? If you go to your package, one of the things that was included was a list, a couple of programs that we came up with.
You mentioned package, you mean in the thing of your email?
We don't have it. Can I have these from memory? So, the other thing about this discussion is I don't have a code vacuum, and so I would actually, there's a risk of coming up with benefits that don't map the program, and there's a risk of coming up with programs that we like without bothering to map any benefits. So I want to go back to the programs. We came up with, looks like 3 or 4 programs in our exercise that we knew with the last meeting. So those came from this group, and it's a good set, a good place to start. And you guys, you come out of the packet, I have mine up on the screen here. I'll list them here. Yeah. Hold that up. That thing's there. And then, so the first is beneficial electrification. The second one is residential storage. The third is energy assessment. And the fourth is renewals. And so what I'd like to do before we get into our discussion is to form groups around each of these and task each of those groups with coming up with the following things. A description of the program, what its elements might be short, like a sentence. What SVCE's role would be, and what the benefits of this program might be for whom. So, we need 4 groups. You want to do beneficial recommendations that you suggested, and then other people who are interested. And all we're doing is going to break up into 4 groups and just answer those questions and then come back. Yeah.
Let me just back up and see if I understand this correctly. Silicon Valley Clean Energy is about taking electricity and making it carbon-free. Because the state mandated a climate action plan to reduce our carbon footprint, if you will. And the biggest part of the pie for carbon is transportation, and the second biggest is electricity. So they said to the state, to all the municipalities, you have to come up with a climate action plan to reduce your carbon. So therefore, the municipalities in the South Bay, in Santa Clara County, the 13 or whatever, got together and said, we will form a community choice aggregator, something like that. So then they said, okay, we're going to buy electricity on an aggregated basis that's carbon-free or close to carbon-free. So within that, that's what the Silicon Valley Clean Energy objective is to get clean electricity. And then we're supposed to help come up with programs underneath that framework, if you will, or to meet that objective, to promote that and to extend that. Is that correct? Do I understand this correctly?
I would say that that's all true, but it's maybe not just that. For example, one of the things that is on this list is customer awareness. And one of the things that SVCE does is provide choice. So that might be, it's not inconsistent with what you just said, but it goes a little beyond that. And as one example. And then there's also, I wouldn't just be limited to that. Certainly further reducing GHG emissions or helping city meet their climate change goals through their climate action plans. Those are probably going to end up on our list of hopeful outcomes or benefits, right? But I wouldn't say it's just that.
If I can just build on that. So forming a community choice aggregator or community choice energy agency was on those cities or towns that had a climate action plan was the top, or if not near the top of the list, to be able to create cleaner energy and save a lot of GHGs that way. But the fundamental objective was to reduce greenhouse gases and address climate change. And so in addition to just getting clean electricity, to Peter's point, there are other things that can be done by a utility company or community choice aggregator. And just on the homepage of SVCE, GHG reduction, you have choices now, competition to help drive down price, and local investment. So there's creating this entity enabled clean electricity, which is a huge thing, but it also enables other things. So I would agree strongly that the programs don't need to be just about clean energy. It can, in fact, be about using that clean energy for other things like electrifying things.
So how does curtailment or reducing the amount of electricity fit into that? I mean, obviously, if your carbon-free energy is all 100% renewable, then reducing the amount of energy you do doesn't necessarily reduce greenhouse gas emissions. In fact, it reduces the revenues of SVCE. Does that still fit within our?
I think you can. I mean, my hope is here is that we'll go through these things one by one and sort of test them. That's pretty. I think so. We should test that. Okay.
That probably fits more under like the benefits you were describing. To whom are the benefits for? Is it for Silicon Valley Clean Energy, or is it for the end user? And I think it could be both. And I think it should be both.
We're a public service for the community, and we want to help the community save money, even if it does hurt the revenue on any one thing.
Or we can decide that.
Yeah, right. That's an example.
Or we can not decide that.
That's right. That's right. But yeah, you think about it as you, Pamela said.
Okay, so can we have a group on, well, let's just do corners. We have for beneficial electrification, we'll be over there, and people that are interested in fleshing that out. And we're going to report out what are the elements of the program, what's SVCE's role, and what are the benefits to whom. We're only going to do this for about 20 minutes, because we're going to come back to this program and talk about that in specifics. So then residential storage will be over there, energy assessment over there, and energy awareness over there. And if you guys want to merge those last two, that's fine. And we'll go until we record at 12. And just go to where you're interested.
Does anyone want a notepad at this stage to take notes? Because we are having some technical difficulties when we come back to reconvene. This is an option. If anyone would like one, we have colorful markers and sticky notepads. You guys do your group one on paper? Yes. All right.
Okay, so I want to reconvene while you guys are eating. And I'd like to welcome Girish Balachandran, who is the new CEO. And he's our lunch speaker.
Well, thank you very much, Peter. Glad to be here on my second day. I'll just tell you a few things about myself and be happy to answer any questions you may have. I've been in the municipal utility business for about 28 years. Started off with the city of Pasadena, went up to the city of Palo Alto, spent 16 years in the utilities dealing with electricity, water, and gas. Then moved to Alameda Municipal Power. I crossed the bay for 7 years. And then down south, my last job at the city of Riverside, managed the electric and water utility there for 4 years. So kind of back to home in a way. We spent 24 years in the Bay Area, so we're happy to be back. And I was telling staff yesterday, and we wanted to thank John and staff for doing a great job in the last many months. Every organization I've worked for have been around more than 100 years. And when you're in an organization, you join an organization that's been around for so long, there's a certain culture there, many positives and many challenges too. So being part of the CCA, with the employee with the longest tenure at Silicon Valley, about 16 months or so, is great. And everyone chose to be here. And they were, in a way, taking a risk. We were just talking about it earlier this morning. We've chosen to be here. I'm very excited about being part of a movement like this, because in a way, the future is unknown. How are we going to get there? But just looking at this and hearing the conversation here, it's exactly what I've signed up for, and our staff has signed up for, to be part of the movement and discover something better than what maybe our incumbent utilities can provide. So that kind of general intro, be happy to answer any questions, and also will be a support to Peter and the board, and looking forward to obviously what you're going to come up with in June. But hopefully we can be part of that discussion. I'm very glad to be here.
So any questions?
So, let's say you look out 2 years from now. What would you define as a successful 2 years? Having accomplished as an organization and leading this organization?
I don't know the answer to that question yet. We have a strategic plan. I know what, in general, what our board wants through going through an interview process. But between an interview process and actually sitting down with each board member and the board as a whole, things change. So I'm actually talking to all the board members, talking to all the staff. But I think, given that caveat, I think making a difference in the sense, doing something for our energy customers that PG&E could not do or would not do. So, PG&E isn't the energy business. It offers all kinds of programs, but what can we do as Silicon Valley Clean Energy? And we've already done it, like you mentioned in your earlier comments. We're already 100% carbon free. We can choose a 100% renewable program. So when I think of success, now I get a little more detailed. When you think about offering something that PG&E doesn't, we have certain issues. We have existential threats to us because the IOUs, they're not too excited about having us around. So on the regulatory side and the legislative side, they continue to be threats to our existence. So that's almost like we've got to manage that. We can't do what we're doing in this room today without managing that. So I think managing the regulatory side, making sure that we have the rules set in place so we can actually be a successful organization in the long run. The details of the PCIA, how that gets done. That changes the bottom line for us. So I think in the next couple of years, that's one big issue on the regulatory and legislative side. I think here on the customer program side, whether it's the residential side that you're looking at, or the commercial side, doing something different. I think being in Silicon Valley, the demographics of Silicon Valley, and the institutions we have, we can do something different here. That's probably not available in 90% of the state. So, these programs, for example, what can we do different? I talked to you just a tiny little bit about what can we do different that PG&E is not offering, or the industry is not offering. That would be a success. Yeah. Any other questions?
All right, thanks very much.
Thank you.
So storage group, you guys are up. And what we want from each of the groups, because we're running a little short of time, is we're not trying to develop these programs here so much as we want to provide a context for a discussion of benefits. So introduce your program. It's taken like 5 minutes for each of these, and we'll try to capture it. What is the next?
How are you? Peter asked that we record something so that
Since these guys already have flip cards. So go ahead.
So, we were a group of 3, and the objective was to identify a residential storage program, so heat, part, residential, and storage. As we learned in the session that most of us attended, there's the duck curve, we think it's called, where the supply of electricity, carbon-free electricity, is growing in the from 2 p.m. to 4 p.m., 1 p.m. to 4 p.m., with a lot of photovoltaic solar, and the price is actually coming down, and there's too much electricity at that point in time relative to the demand, notwithstanding there's a large amount of air conditioning demand. But what happens is between 5 p.m. and 9 p.m. there's a huge demand spike with people turning on their cooking appliances and cranking up their air conditioning even more as they come home from work. So we were looking at saying, okay, let's use residential storage, the program, create resident incentives, awareness, and some sort of a rate structure perhaps to create an incentive for people to take their solar energy and to store it and then release that and use that for their own location, or more put some back into the grid between 5 p.m. and 9 p.m. So I think that was the program that we talked about.
So this would go with PV. The resident that has photovoltaic would do this, or
They could or they could not. If they didn't have photovoltaic, at least they could have residential storage. So that maybe their neighbor has photovoltaic, but they don't. So the neighbor is back feeding the grid, and then they help flatten that curve, if you will. We talked about creating a rate structure that mirrors the market pricing, so that there's a lower price during peak generation between 1 and 4 p.m. and then a higher price between 5 p.m. and 9 p.m.
So before you leave that, you said the rate structure would presumably would be extremely useful to SVCE.
Yes.
SVCE also provide direct financial incentives?
So we were talking about maybe what financial incentives, they could be sort of incentives but non-financial. So for example, creating 5 different cookie cutter models of what a residential storage package could look like. If you were a house this big and you wanted to have shift so much demand, you could have so much storage. And then someone could, so it's not, each one doesn't require its own engineering. Like for solar, you've got to do a certain amount of engineering and line diagrams. The other incentive we thought we could offer is reduced permitting costs.
so that rather than someone paying the full price for a permit, maybe there's a reduced price for the permit and the inspection. And then the other thing we talked about was perhaps having a blanket purchase order with an LG or a Tesla that says the Silicon Valley Energy is going to buy 10,000 units, pick a number, 1,000 units, and then the first 1,000 people that want to buy under that can then get it at a reduced price because you've got the buying power of 1,000 customers, if you will. So under that blanket PO, the first 1,000 people can buy under that, and we thought that wouldn't quote cost anything. And then to the cost of the program, it would be whatever. We thought about the political. Some people may not be happy having their rates changed, so that political noise or flack or whatever, that would be could be a cost, and it's the actual cost of doing the programming to change your rates, your rate structure. I think that summarizes it. Oh, and the other thing we talked about was creating a financial model so that people could look at this and understand, is it for an individual household, does it have a 10-year payback, financial payback, a 3-year, an 8-year, whatever. But we thought that there could be enough people that would do it, not because it's got a great payback, because it's, quote, the right thing to do.
So can you say more specifically about the benefits?
Well, I think the primary benefit is to reduce the grid demand during that duck bill time period. So allowing charging of the units during high production times and then discharge during low production times to level things out, as well as reduce potentially the purchase of peak of plant energy.
So I'm going to ask all the questions, other questions.
I don't know, technical terms, there's a concept of a microgrid with some, like reservoirs connected, so this could be maybe part of that, the one house with storage, maybe storage is either provided by Silicon Valley Clean Energy. Do we know much about microgrids, please?
Tough topic. I mean, this is not a program we're actually going to recommend or not recommend. And this is not the last time we've discussed it, it's just purposes of discussing benefits. So one, you mentioned duck curve benefits and also reducing the duck curve impacts on reducing heating, fossil heating piece.
Yeah, when we were discussing that as a group, we were saying, okay, Silicon Valley Clean Energy is going to buy carbon-free power during the whole 24 hours a day, but someone's going to have peaker plants running to provide that energy. So it may not be Silicon Valley Clean Energy changing its mix, but it would at least overall for the Western U.S. or whatever the market is, reducing the carbon footprint by peaker plants.
Easing the duck curve impact on the grid, on the western grid.
Why don't you put that down since you're putting the benefits?
Yeah, I was gonna ask.
I guess we also have the reliability in terms of should there be an outage on the grid itself. If customers have home storage, they then don't have to worry about power outage.
That may or may not be true depending on how the storage is set up.
Right.
It might be a potential benefit though, right?
It could be, yeah, potentially a backup. Yeah, potentially.
Okay.
You want some more benefits to it?
I want to actually, you guys, you capture everything that,
I think.
okay, so where's the customer awareness group?
Yes, but
Spokesperson, can you guys also create a page like that?
I guess that's two program ideas, so we'll do 2 pages. Someone's gonna do the other one.
So actually, you don't have to link those to the program.
No? No, all right.
The energy market.
Okay, the second one will be better.
Yeah.
They are very similar.
But the actual program.
It's over the one.
So, one of the programs we are proposing, or an idea is to install energy monitoring devices, specifically ones that can differentiate between different appliances and types of appliances. And such devices exist on the market, you can buy them off the shelf. And, can I talk first and then write? I don't know.
Or get somebody else to write?
First description, which is install energy monitoring devices that can separate appliances. So what SVCE's role might be are, again, similar to the previous idea, is that providing bulk ordering of these devices, presumably you get significant discounts at no actual cost to us. There's advance payment, but potentially depending on what our finances are like, SVCE could partially or wholly subsidize the devices. Another thing is the facilitation of the installation. These devices typically require installation by a licensed electrician. So if you want to buy one that's on your own, that's a significant barrier to your entry. Of like, oh, gotta go find an electrician. If you don't happen to know a good electrician, that's a whole other thing you got to figure out before you can install this thing. So this SVCE had like a list of here in your community, here's like 10 or 20 electricians who are good and they know exactly how to do this installation and they can do it and there's another area where potentially SVCE could provide, like they could offer a discount to SVCE, people in this program, or depending on SVCE's finances, that we could subsidize wholly or partially that installation. I'm sorry? Yes. Thank you. And then the last thing would be, since these devices that exist off the shelf, provide a lot of data, SVCE could provide recommendations on how to use that data. Like, for example, if you notice that your refrigerator or your extra freezer you have in the garage is using a lot of electricity because that shows up from your device, then that's a good reason to buy a replacement refrigerator that's much more efficient, because maybe your old one is 20 or 30 years old, and maybe there's some discounts or rebates that are applicable to that as well. So in terms of the benefits, obviously for the customer, there are potentially lower bills through awareness. There are studies that show that if you have real-time data about your electricity consumption, on average people reduce their electricity usage by maybe 5 to 10% depending on the person. Basically just becoming aware of what you're using makes you aware of how you can use less. Also, since these devices can break it down by appliance, you can realize that you can replace an appliance. For example, like you have an aging appliance which you realize suddenly uses a lot more electricity than you thought it did, then that'd be a good opportunity for you to replace it, and then thereby reduce your bill.
Just a point for Amla. It's not just necessarily lower bills from less power. It's by also shifting the usage from a high
Potentially, yes, that changes.
I'm shifting from a let's say the higher rate time to a lower rate time. So let's say a dryer that you might have.
And then finally, for another benefit for customers is increased energy literacy. Like many customers just don't know, maybe they don't even know what a watt is or a kilowatt, and suddenly being able to explore these interactively and know like, oh wow, I turn on my microwave, it uses like 1,500 watts. I didn't know that. It only uses it for a minute or two, but that's a big thing to like just increase that energy literacy. So the benefits for SVCE are potentially reduced greenhouse gas emissions through reduced electricity usage. And then also I submit that increased awareness and energy literacy benefits SVCE in general, because the more people are aware and conscious of their electricity usage, the more likely they're, like say, for example, to upgrade to the one that I can't remember, the 100% renewable option for SVCE. And that's that for that one.
So Green Prime.
Green Prime, thank you.
It might be worth just elaborating a bit more about the actual, the description of the offer with the program. What we're saying here is it's an energy monitoring / usage system for the home. So that already exists in the form of your bill you get on a monthly basis. You see how much you use and when, by time of usage or via about the energy used. What we're proposing is making that personalised and more in real time, either via an app or via the website, so that the customers can monitor that on a daily basis. And the difference would be that it would make granular recommendations about which devices you're using at which time of day. So it might perhaps say, oh, you notice you used your dryer at this time last week, consider using it at a different time of day, so it uses off-peak energy. So the more granular it becomes, the more real-time it becomes, the more we felt that people would follow the actions and the recommendations, and the more personalised recommendations that we're proposing it makes.
So we have a second suggestion as well, which does not require to encourage our customers to purchase this device. It's basically, the idea is still to inform consumers of how much they're using and when they're using their electricity. So we want to show them the consumption either per hour or per volume, and tell them how much it costs them in a very simple manner. So we could do that on the bill, or we could also do that by sending them alerts through SMS, for instance. So they don't have to download an app, they don't have to install a device, but SVCE has the data. They make it easy to consume and easy to use. On top of this, on top of informing users of their consumers of the utilization per hour or per tier, we also want to make them recommendations. We want to tell them, if you had spent 10% of your peak hour electricity in the lowest hour time, you would have saved so much money. You would have saved X amount of money. Making them concrete recommendations that are emphasizing on how much money they save by shifting their consumption, by changing their behavior, to make them really aware. It's using so I said the bill, text messages, the role of SVCE is obviously they have the data, they know how much people are using, so they should be able to use that data and insert this into the bill or send the SMS.
The idea is very similar to what we already have in our phones, for example. Most of the cellular providers actually give you the data plan, and so tell you 80% usage or 50% usage, and then you can go down deeper into it and see which device is using how much data and all that stuff. The idea is very similar to that. The data already exists, it's just a matter of how SVCE is providing the data to the customers. And the other idea that we were talking about earlier was about getting even more deeper, because now it's not just about buying the hour at the aggregate level, it's buying a particular device, referring to a dryer or what have you. So that requires...
If that's possible, to have the detail. So if you think about it, if you have a Nest, every month you should be receiving an email telling you this is how much you spent, these are the factors that have contributed to your energy consumption, and this is how your neighbors have been doing, and how you compare with your neighbors. So there's also some kind of a competition gamification element to this. And that's what we want to do as well. In the bill, over SMS. SMS is really warnings or in email like Next. with SMS, if you have, I have AT&T, I don't know what Sprint on the other ones, but I know with AT&T, when I reach 75% of my data, I get an SMS in the week. And when I reach 90%, I get a text message, another one, and 100%, I'm being told that I no longer have data and I'm going to be scrolled. So it's the same idea, is to warn people to tell them, this month we spend so much money, and if you continue, it's going to cost you X amount. And so you're shifting your usage.
So question, I think it's really important. It happens to be my personal agenda. So my question is, there's a benefit floating around here, I want to make sure we capture it.
So I'm not to the benefits yet, yes.
Pardon?
I'm not at the benefits yet.
Oh, you're not? You're still
I'm explaining how it works.
Well, okay, so before we get done with your, we want to make sure that we have one or more goals up there that really capture this idea of, no matter whether it's customer awareness, customer engagement, user experience, but there's a thing there. Yeah.
Absolutely. So there is an element of customer engagement because SVCE gets in touch with the customers on a regular basis and brings them clear benefits. So there's a personal connection with SVCE. There's also the benefit of saving money. You know how much you're using almost live with the text messages.
So use the word, sorry,
Yes.
so he said personal, I think that's
Yeah.
personal engagement,
Personal connection.
personal. Customized personal, I just want to capture these words.
And I would also, I don't know if you captured it, but I would also emphasize in the relationship the gamification elements. This is how you fare this month, this is last month, and how many points, and how your neighbors are also friendly. And yes, so obviously there's a monetary benefit for the consumers, and by shifting their behavior, and there's also the benefit from SVC on top of the connection they build with the consumers. There's also the benefit of changing their consumers' behavior according to your needs. If you need more electricity to be spent at a different time, then you can do that with your messages. It has to be consistent, meaning that every month or every X amount of time, you get that message, and it's always using the same criteria. Because that way the consumers can compare how they did last month versus this month and so on. Okay?
Other comments, questions?
And one thing also that we discussed, that somebody mentioned is, at the last meeting, we had this chart that was showing a typical consumer and the amount of energy they would spend every hour, if you remember that. And we started to say, oh, what can we infer from that? We can infer that maybe they have a car, electric car, maybe they're running the wash and dry, maybe they have AC and so on. So it would be great if on the bill, we could also have the average consumption per hour so that every consumer sees how much they're spending in terms of the tiers, if it's an hour tier, or per volume, if they are charged per volume, so they would know that they are spending way too much in the most expensive volume, and they should reduce their energy. On top of this, if we could have a way of automatically deducting from that consumption when they are running, that would be great. We could send a message like, hey, we noticed you've been running the AC, consider lowering down the temperature on the AC. And you could save X amount of money, for instance. Have personalized messages based on that average energy consumption. If it's possible, I would say it's a stretch goal. Anything else? Team members?
I would just add that the way that would work is you make a best guess based on logarithms of past usage, and then the customer would then fill in the gaps about it. So you'd say, were you using this at this stage? They'd say yes. So another benefit of that would be a huge amount of customer insights into who the customers are, what type of households they have for SVCE as well.
And I think, if I may add, basically a lot of the data that we're talking about already exists. So it's just a matter of having access to the data. So I think, maybe, the second, this problem that we talked about is really more about just having the access to the data. So to your earlier point, even if the information, even if there's no recommendation coming from SVCE, at least as a consumer, if you have the information, we can figure out ourselves.
Make it super simple. I can give you a recent experience with different utilities, garbage. The BP has been changed our garbage company, and they communicated, they sent mailing, they did an incredible amount of communication, and yet most people didn't catch, and they were able to choose a lower price service. And you have to be extremely simple in your communication. And I think once again, an example is the email you get from Nest. If anybody wants to see it, I would be happy to send them mine. It's extremely simple. It's just 3 or 4 metrics, easy to understand, and it's coming every month so that customers really understand what's going on. Good. Excellent. That's for the you guys already have it.
After those benefits?
You use the term gamification. Right there. Well, it's
For the benefit.
I wrote down it was compare the benchmarks, compare it to your neighbors.
Can everyone see?
Socialization, social media.
Perfect.
See
Thank
this?
you.
Can you all see this? I mean, I'll talk about it, so maybe if you can't see it, So, our group was looking at a program around beneficial electrification, which fundamentally is defined as moving from fossil fuels to clean electricity that also reduces GHG and saves energy and dollars related to energy. It can be around a few different types of technologies that we didn't get into the specifics of what a program here could do or which one we might start with, but electric vehicles, water heating, space conditioning, other devices like yard tools, dryers, other things, as well as the readiness to electrify, which is another element because all these electrification all requires the same kind of, it's all dependent on the same infrastructure, panels and wires in a home. So that's fundamentally what we're talking about, is trying to switch people from fossil fuels like gasoline to electric vehicles, or instead of using natural gas, to use clean electricity for their water heaters or their furnaces, generically called space conditioning, or their lawnmower, for example, or dryer or cooktop, if you're willing to pry that from their hands. So induction cooking. So I'll come to the benefits in a minute. I think so. It could involve incentives. So Silicon Valley Clean Energy's role to market the program and more broadly in program terms, M&E&O is marketing, education, and outreach. So it's getting the word out about the program, and some kind of incentive or rebate, depending on whether or not some money needs to be put into the equation to help people adopt these technologies. Another way to do that is through rate structures, like other people talked about, having rates or rate overlays like the net energy metering that we have for solar. That's a rate type of program. So other things that are part of SVCE's role, putting the community first and what's benefiting the community. So it may not be what's best for increasing revenues to SVCE, although generally beneficial electrification is moving off of a fuel that doesn't generate revenues for this entity and increases revenues to the entity. So this would generally be positive to the organization.
Is that a benefit, increasing SVCE revenue sales?
Yeah, when I get to the benefits, it'll be listed here. So other aspects of SVCE roles, just like with any program, managing, administration of the program can be done by staff. In certain staff would have to be involved. A lot of programs are also run by third-party companies that are contracted out to do some of the day-to-day implementation or running of the program. Other aspects, either for SVCE staff or those implementers under contract, would be to help manage and encourage participation of local community contractors, so electricians, plumbers, those that would help make it happen. Like someone mentioned with the other program idea, you want participating contractors involved that are supportive of the program and engaged in doing the right thing for the customers. Also, responding to the, I don't remember what this one is. EA community? No? What was that? Each community with measures. Oh, and then also another role is training contractors, training others on what the program would be involved. So that's fundamentally what SVCE would be doing, more or less. Then what are some of the benefits? Saving energy, it's customer benefit, reducing GHGs, customers and communities, improving air quality internal to a building, people's homes and apartments, as well as the general air quality of the community. Alleviate climate change impacts is what comes from the reduction of greenhouse gases. Community benefit of local jobs, so there's more contractors working, there's work to do to replace these types of things, more local sales of EVs, so more local jobs. Benefit to SVCE, to Peter's question, revenue to SVCE, typically the revenue goes up because there'll be more electricity use. So more revenues come in, more part of that overall revenue bucket that might be put into programs. So it's a virtuous cycle of taking more of PG&E's business, more of the oil company's business making gasoline and bringing it into the business here to be able to do more benefits. Then from the customer perspective, other benefits, costs, reduction of costs from the EVs, reduction of costs through any kind of incentives or rebates that might be contributed through the budget from the organization.
Could you clarify that?
Cost reduction for customers. So there's potential cost reduction just from purchasing if the program would include an element of incentive dollars paid. It's not necessarily the case. That would be a program detail to figure out. The other cost reductions, it depends on what type of technology is being electrified. EVs are a lot less expensive to run and maintain. So a lot less maintenance. The fuel cost is much lower than gasoline costs. I have 2 EVs at home. I have hardly any maintenance. So there is it's into roughly $40,000 over 25 years from the EV benefit, based on an expert calculation I've seen. So there's a lot of cost reductions of vehicle ownership from electrification of that vehicle.
So you're talking about cost savings to the customer or cost savings to the customer that result from incentives that SVCE?
Both. Incentives are reductions that help with the upfront cost to get people over the barrier of first cost, potentially.
That's an implementation, but it's not necessarily a benefit, right?
Well, no, if a program from SVCE is helping to encourage people to electrify their vehicles, then the customer going from a gasoline car to an electric vehicle gets a benefit. If there's an incentive, they'll get money in their pocket that makes the EV cheaper. That's the first benefit. Second benefit is over time, that EV is cheaper to operate. That is a benefit of the program.
Right.
So, did I answer your question?
Not to mention reduced carbon.
Right.
Well, yeah,
I said that.
all these other things, but
I
just
just-
reduction of cost element. These are cheaper to operate. People just don't realize.
So you have reduced cost to customer every purchase, but you can't see that. purchase price and maintenance, reduced cost, so that's what you're talking about.
I'm talking about reduced operational cost of the vehicle and the reduction of first cost if the entity, if this organization wants to provide rebates or incentives. It depends on how much. The reason I point out that there's a lot of other benefits to the customer here is that I would say that you don't have to throw a lot of money at people to go to EVs if you help them understand they're going to save a lot of other money somewhere else. Water heating and space conditioning depends on the customer situation, the home or other situation. For some people's situations, these in the short term will save costs of operation. For many people, it actually is over time a losing proposition because they're more expensive right now. But as we establish the market, which is another benefit, we're trying to get the market moving in the right direction for these things. The cost for heat pump water heaters, the cost for heat pump space heating will come down. It'll be easier and more commonplace. So over time, these should be a positive cost savings from people switching to these types of technologies in the home. The no regrets benefit has to do with the readiness to electrify. Because electrification infrastructure is the same across the house, someone's solar system if they have it, the EV, the water heating, space conditioning, and other elements of electrification all depend on how big your panel is, your service from the telephone pole, not telephone pole, the utility pole. I used to call them telephone poles. So in all the wiring in the house, usually people's homes are not ready for all that extra load, and it costs money. If we look at this one at a time without understanding the need to look at the foundational infrastructure, people will upgrade their panel and the wiring so that they can put an EV charger in their garage, for example, and then when we come back to them later and say, oh, well, we have this new program for water heaters or space heaters, then maybe that panel wasn't big enough for both of those things. We need to be talking about readiness to electrify along with any of these other things so that they don't come back to us and say, you convinced me to upgrade, now I got to get a new panel and I got to run more wires. So I just want to bring that up. We want a no regrets benefit to come from this, and also to eliminate a concern or a complaint of a program that might come up. Even in my own town in Sunnyvale, the manager of the sustainability group, she had this problem. She upgraded for one thing, then she had to go do her panel again. It's just really important, readiness to electrify.
If I may add a comment there, I think that's very important for you just mentioned that at the home level, when the infrastructure is ready to actually go through electrical, but then also at the same time to consider the local grid level. Because if you talk about everybody's going to 30 more on the grid, is the grid ready for something like that?
In small chunks, in most neighborhoods, it's going to be okay, but then it will grow, and then the storage program might help with some of that, right? To help balance the load in the neighborhood. But that's an important point to consider.
I have a question on that one. So,
yeah.
I'm pretty sure we're far from this situation, but do we have enough 100% clean power that SVCE can source today 24/7 if we know it? I mean,
well, you have to remember, we're not instantly transforming everybody to an electric home. Over time, the grid has adapted to all sorts of changes in the past. There are a lot of smart people working on it at the Cal ISO level, the grid, they operate the grid, and others. That it's a challenge. We want to be aware of it and check in on it. It's not typically a problem that we're going to have to deal with. It's something to be aware of, and we want to make sure that we have the right story around that, and making sure we're aware of what impacts, depending on the neighborhood and the.
Well, I think you're asking. I was asking the question: do we have the ability to get clean power?
Yes.
We can always buy more or build more.
I don't think that's probably. I'm not buying the power for the
that's not my department. Yeah, not my department.
This is still a drop in the bucket to the overall electric side. Yeah.
So, the readiness to electrify, that resonates with me because and it gets back to the building permitting process where people are saying, you need to have a 200 amp service. Why I think we're a 150 amp service or whatever. I think if we stare into the future and you say you want to deal with electrification, really that should increase, right, to 200 or 250 amp service, so that you've got the ability to scale your electrification inside of each home.
Yeah.
And the whole awareness and what the requirements are at the municipal permit issuing desk they need to have an awareness that, gee, maybe it shouldn't be 200, maybe it should be 250 amps.
Yeah, that's a good point. I'm also involved with the Carbon Free Silicon Valley Advocacy Group, and we're looking at the readiness side as one element. And there's an expert that formerly worked at the City of Palo Alto Utilities, Tom Cabot, who I think the CEO knows. He has got some draft specifications of many, a few typical configurations of homes. What is it going to take at the panel level? How much of a service? How big of a pipe of electricity you need into the home to be able to handle changing everything to electric? So there's some experts that are working on that right now, and it does come into play in the permits. And since you mentioned permits, the other thing that SVCE can do that we didn't talk about is working through the member agencies of the cities to try to improve or smooth out the permit process for electrification. For example, when I installed a heat pump water heater in my home, I had to get a plumbing permit and an electric permit, where if you just upgrade the water heater from natural gas to natural gas, it's just an electrical permit.
So part of
plumber permit, right?
Part of
Exactly.
it
Just
is
plumber.
electrified might be probably really part of it, that reducing permitting costs.
Yes, smooth the process, reduce permitting costs. It
It's not
could be
just
done
that,
through the member.
obviously, including reducing permitting costs. And it's more planning for it, but
Yeah. It's really important. Part of the readiness is not only what you need in the home, it's being ready so that when your water heater cracks out, which it will do, that you've got the wiring and you're ready to go, so you're prepared, you're planning ahead for that replacement. That is not typically done in water heating, but the head of Sunnyvale Cool Climate Advocacy Group had to put in a natural gas water heater. She didn't really want to, but 6 days after having no hot water, her husband finally said, no, get the new water heater in there. She was not ready to electrify. So that's why that's important also, particularly with water. Anything else?
okay, so we have a list of program benefits up there, actually a pretty good list. And you have my secret list on your computer, so I can't tell you what. So my question now is, what's not up there? I mean, obviously, the things, we talked about some specific programs, and some of those benefits match to some of those programs, and some, actually, a lot of these benefits match multiple programs and programs provide local benefits. But what we want to know is, what's not up there?
Depending on the program implementation and the type of incentives, there can be a benefit to disadvantaged areas of the territory. So, and just take or disadvantaged communities or disadvantaged customers. For example, Sonoma Clean Power's EV program has a higher rebate for lower income folks. So there's potential to have different levels of benefits depending on the need or the nature of a community or a set of customers.
So increased participation in disadvantaged communities?
Well, that's not the benefit. The benefit is that yes,
disparity.
well, I guess that's a good way to say it. Increased participation in disadvantaged communities where they might need more help to participate. Yeah.
What did you say? You said
Increased financial
Obstacles for disadvantage.
or increased participation.
increase participation.
Yeah, yeah. That's a big positive way to say that.
I'm not sure if the gamification, that seems like a technique and not a benefit. Potentially, it could be, you could say, have more fun, I guess, you know, as a
Be
benefit.
fun, yeah.
I think the ability to compare the benchmarks or your neighbors is a benefit.
So but that's benefit of awareness, right? Like, I guess what I'm saying is it seems like comparing to your neighbors is a thing you do, but it's not, you know, what is it that you get out of that activity? To me, it's awareness or smug superiority or whatever, you know.
Yeah, I think that I've been trying this out on my millennial kids. And they keep asking, well, you know, I just want to know how I'm doing. But what that means really is, how am I doing relative to some benchmark?
Right.
So awareness is you know, what they want is actually something specific. How am I doing relative to my friends, relative to what I should be doing? And
So competition maybe is.
I don't think it's really even that. I mean, you use the term gamification, and we don't have to solve this here. I just want to make sure it comes through the notion.
It just seems like, to me, it's an interesting concept, but it didn't seem like it was the same as the other things.
You guys aren't old enough to remember before you were a couple of years out, but before we had MPG. You know, in 1973, before 1973, nobody knew what MPG was. But now we all know. You know, if you're getting 15 MPG, that's not as good as 50. And hopefully we'll soon forget it. Yeah, sure. Miles or something. So, but the point is that there's a way to benchmark what you're doing. And I think today, you know, this is one of the things, everyone has ways to compare. So at least accepting electricity needs.
I would suggest also that because there's a lot of different ways to combine programs, that just providing increased customer choice, it's along about how they use energy. So the entity SVCE was formed to improve choice in electricity providers, but another benefit now from programs is to increase people's choices of how, you know, the devices in their home or what they drive. They now have more choices, and how do we help increase those choices as well? So it's building on the one of the fundamentals of this organization, begin with increased choice.
And local control, those are real big deals.
So what is, I agree, what is local control?
It means that we locally have some input into the choices that we have. Okay, this is creating right now, in our very group, at this very moment, creating some local control over what we're asking of our entity and of our board.
Actually, speaking of which, the concept of tiers, how, I know it's probably off the topic here, but it's really the benchmarking area. How are the tiers developed? First, tier 1, tier 2, how do you know how do you develop that?
Well, maybe there's a benefit called transparency, which is part of local control.
Absolutely. Transparency
Customers have
is-
transparency, they can understand. Kind of pretty.
I have another one to add. So, along the lines of what our new CEO has said, that where can SVCE add and do things that PG&E can't or won't do? So it's filling in gaps in customer service from their utility or their combined set of utilities. So you've got PG&E providing certain things, and then SVCE can fill in the gaps. It may be another play on the increased choices, but it's filling in the gaps of programs that PG&E can't do, like fuel switching. They're not allowed to do fuel switching programs, or electrification programs, to put it another way. Another aspect of that is to accelerate, one possible program benefit is accelerate things that PG&E is doing, like they're promoting electrical vehicles adoption. So anything that this entity does in electric vehicles is really on top of and accelerating or enhancing what PG&E is doing.
So can you express that in terms of a benefit for somebody?
Well, it's adding more ways to reduce GHGs that didn't exist already. So maybe it's already captured in the other benefits, but I just wanted to point out that we're filling in the gap of offerings of how to help customers.
Filling in the gap?
Well, it's in a way maybe it's built on the choices one I was referring to before, is that there's a lot of different ways that one can, any of our residents in this territory can increase or decrease their GHGs, and so we're adding other avenues to give people more ways to help contribute that saves GHGs and also can or could save them money.
And it could also enhance existing benefits from other entities like PG&E.
Right. Right. So it's sort of a layer, they're kind of layered on. It's just another way to understand some of these existing benefits. Because we're not operating in a vacuum. There's other things that are being done by our local cities or towns, the county, PG&E, and others. That's a good, that's actually a good way to say it. Is program benefits designed properly will leverage and enhance the benefits of other programs.
At the end of the day, we've got an issue where we've got a supply of carbon-free electricity and demand for electricity, whether it be carbon-free or not. We want to reduce the demand for electricity in total, reduce the demand for carbon, greenhouse gas, energy. Right? That's what the state wants to do. So what we want to do is electrify things because you can then provide carbon-free energy, right? So thinking this through, overall, that's what the objective is. So the benefits, to reach the benefits of that goal, you need to understand what your demand curve is like at every hour of the day and what your supply is of carbon-free energy at every hour of the day on a community-by-community basis, right? So as you implement a program, you can see if the gaps are starting to close.
Yeah, so you could reduce grid demand during peak hours, but a way to maybe add to that would be to align demand with supply.
Yes, because you can't really control supply unless you shift it, but you can modify demand, right?
You do both those things.
Yeah. But it's easier on the demand side than the supply side.
See everything.
So,
go ahead, sorry.
I was going to say, from Silicon Valley Clean Energy's perspective, can we get data that says here's what the demand is on a community by community basis, so that we can see which communities have higher demand in quote bad times or poor times of the day?
Okay, so that's real time.
Well, okay, so
You can get
that may not be as helpful as segregating load by customer type. I mean, communities won't really, a community may have a commercial, residential, institutional, and they would change their demands. But it's not that helpful. What you want to know is we have residential load that peak at this time, we have commercial load peak at this time, institutional load, hospital, and so on. Then you can actually design something for that.
But what I want to know as a customer is what am I doing right now that impacts that? So I want real-time data.
Yeah, but the grid
So
itself,
that I can see
the
that.
grid itself behaves the same way as far as your load. So if you're concerned about when should I manage my load to affect the grid, it doesn't matter whether you're in Mountain View or the Pierce, or because we're in the same kind of region.
So let me get sort of personal here or whatever, micro level. I represent Monte Sereno. We're not, when I look at the Monte Sereno community, it's not that big, but there's a fair amount of electric cars on a per capita basis. What could Silicon Valley Clean Energy do to get those people so that they're not peaking their demand at 11 o'clock? Like, I don't know when the best time is to charge a car other than what PG&E rates are, or our rates are. But if we could create some type of a program that says, you know, it's best between 2 a.m. and 6 a.m. or whatever it is, because that's aligned with when the supply of carbon-free electricity is available, then in Monte Sereno, we could have some type of a program that could start to align that. And if we could see the results for our little community, I think people would say, okay, I'll invest my time to program my car or program my whatever to do this, and then here's the results. And they feel good.
So other, we're going to talk about programs next time.
Yeah, that's it.
Other benefits, we're kind of winding down at the one side of time. So, and this is, we'll maintain this list through our entire age, we have or subtract or rebuild or whatever.
The only other thing I want to bring up is the ability of a program portfolio, a set of programs. So compared to talking about one program, is that you can take some benefits from some programs that increased revenue and use it where something might be reducing revenue. So the benefit of a program
So we're going to get to run
set
a book.
is to be able to move money around, some gain, some loss, but overall, you know, reducing GHGs.
Having a portfolio approach.
A portfolio approach, or, you know, think of it as like a product bundle, a program bundle.
Is that a benefit or is that an active?
Well, it's a benefit. It's a benefit of a program set is the ability, as opposed to one program, the ability to balance the benefits and costs across multiple programs. It's a program portfolio design benefit.
Also a choice for clients.
Yeah.
Providing choice to your customers is a benefit in their mind.
Yeah. It really for me is how do we maximize GHG reductions overall from the whole set of programs? And if you think of it from the perspective of what is increasing revenue and giving money to be able to put money in it, then solar actually reduces revenue. Energy efficiency reduces revenue. So, should we not do those? I would say we should do those, but use the electrification to offset the loss of revenue.
So I would say we're raising that. I think we talk about this allocate time next time to do it. So if you imagine like a grid, it has a list of possible benefits that a given program could have. That criteria might be, does it have benefits in rural areas? Or does it have a lot of benefits relative to its cost? And so there's a list that said these are not criteria necessarily, but they can become criteria. So what to talk about?
I guess to some degree I'm trying to set the stage for thinking more broadly than one program at a time. You want to think about the whole set of programs. Because sometimes things don't make sense at a particular program level, but they make sense at a portfolio program level.
Well, we'll like to see whether we can.
Yeah.
Because those, we're about out of time. Other, last call for other benefits that anybody wants to put up there. Nobody mentioned really local economic, I guess local economic development is there, local jobs. Okay, so then, I guess we have staff comments, remarks. What's next?
I would just like to request a revote on it when we able to do that. Unfortunately, I'm sorry to catch this earlier, but because we had so many abstention votes, we did not receive a quorum number of votes. So we had at least 9 votes, whether for or against, just to move the item forward. So I cannot sway your abstention votes one way or the other, but if you could please vote yes or no on the item, because we had so many votes, we cannot move one of the.
The comment is just, this was a informational workshop, and if you've read the minutes and have no discrepancies in the minutes, that's just something to consider based on your decision.
So how can we change our vote if that's appropriate?
Yeah, I'll do a roll call vote. That's okay.
So are you just doing 1B or is it?
Yeah, 1B, the rest should be fine. We received 9 votes for those. 1B, we will revisit.
Do you want a new motion or just?
I will do a roll call vote.
It's a revote on the motion to.
Correct, or in fact, yeah, maybe we should do another motion if somebody would like to move 1B.
Also move.
I'll second that.
Okay, so move your second. So roll call.
Ween-Win,
Opposed?
Gary Lashon,
Approved.
Tara Srikrishnan, Donald Ween,
Aye.
Peter Evans,
Aye.
George Pardon,
Aye.
Thomas Cable,
Aye.
Brian Mexer,
Aye.
Robert Brewer,
Aye.
Sandy Uji,
Yes.
Tara Martin Lewis,
Yes.
James Sawyer,
Aye.
Helen Garcia,
Yes.
Tristan Meacham,
Aye.
And to add to the workshop, that video is now posted online. So if you go to our meetings and agendas page of our website, that workshop, the presentation, the slides are there for you to view and follow along. If you want to watch and listen, we do get up a lot in front of the camera. I apologize. We needed a lot of coffee early morning, but it is there for those of you who missed out, and it's really good background information. Address. Publicly available on our website, meetings and agendas, customer partner advisory group.
Okay, is there anything else?
Can I make a suggestion for maybe next time? If you could have a hard copy of, stuff so we can add to the document. I forgot because I didn't get the email, right? Didn't print it out at my home. And it would be nice to have a hard copy during the meeting. So if it's okay, it would be nice to
Would
have.
everybody, is that?
I would suggest we just ask which individuals would like that and just do that many.
Or do like 6 or 8. Don't
Okay.
do much for everyone.
So next time, so we can get out of here more or less on time, next time we're going to talk about specific program proposals. We'll come back to these, but then there's a couple that came up today that we want to talk about tomorrow. But we're going to sort of look at these through the lens of this list of benefits that we came up with today. We may talk about how to apply those, what the criteria will be, or some other things that we've done for the review. Pick that up later. I would encourage you, a lot of you are participants in your local communities, environmental commissions or climate action plan communities or things of that nature. I would encourage you to, over the next couple of months, reach out to people in the community and try to get input from them on pretty much anything that they're interested in that has to do with things like energy or energy in general or climate change in general. Or find ways to extend your input beyond your own ideas to keep you interactive day to day. We can talk about specific ways to go out and get that feedback, but we aren't going to have that much time. We're probably not going to have to be able to meet with our own groups and so forth. And so I encourage you, as you do your business, to try to find out what are you thinking about, other ideas that you can bring into this community.
So let's make that, for my benefit, make that a little more tangible. So for example, I've got Los Gatos or Monte Sereno next door. I've got the Monte Sereno City Hall, chambers or whatever. I could have a meeting with residents on a Saturday or during the week or whatever. I've got a forum to announce that. How could what could I do? I've got a communication channel that's fairly effective, and I've got a meeting place that would be okay, wouldn't cost anything. What should I do?
So let's talk about that next time, because one of the ways we could conceivably do is see what the resources are that are available to us. We could conceivably do public sessions, maybe do a few different places around SVCE service area to get people's input. I know that we're talking about South there.
So nothing between now and next meeting?
Well, I guess maybe what I would ask you is think about what the best time is. As we go through our book of business and we have a schedule to work to, it's better to have such a meeting early, without a whole lot of substance to talk about, or it's better to have it later and be able to go and try some ideas on people. I don't know the answer. But that's one of the things to consider. At this point, if you had a meeting, it would be sort of open.
I would prefer, knowing our residents, to have something that's somewhat, that is more defined than less defined.
Yeah, because anything you do now would be more of a collection of ideas that are already out there. That would be a less defined meeting. And unless there's already a lot of activity there and talking about,
There is.
yeah, then you would want to wait until this entity and SVCE has some program ideas, but before they're finally decided, but then there's more substance to talk about. So there's a more well-defined set of topics to present.
I agree with James. I think right now it's about connecting ideas, not on the full-blown meeting, present something, but we listening to the people we connected with. We go next door, maybe having discussions with people and asking them, what would you like to see?
And doing that depends on the community. So if the community is one, if you pose an open-ended question and then people just start ranting, that's not helpful. So,
I guess to that, are folks actually going out to you or reaching out to the community right now and asking questions?
I mean, we have, for instance, in the US, we have environmental groups, one of which I'm in. And so we have followers, we have mailing lists, we have people who are willing to share. And I'm going to reach out to them, I'm going to send them an email saying, hey, this is what I'm doing and what I'm doing. Wanting for your ideas. And people are going to reach back to me and share ideas. That it's going to be a control. It's going to be a controlled environment. It's not going to be out in the open. It's just going to be doing that. And that way we can organize.
If you could send a copy of that email to staff, then staff could then send that to the group. I think that would be super helpful.
Okay, so I'd like to adjourn you guys on this one to talk, and then I'll see you next month. You know where?
Sorry, calendar. It's also lessons tonight. Okay, the 21st, here, same time, same place.
Same date? Thank you very much. Thank you.